Welcome to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. My co-host, the amazing Aaron Adams, and I are recording this on Monday, July 20th. Okay, so Aaron, on the last show, you were talking how much you were looking forward to the Sandman. That was Audible that was doing that, or...
Yeah, and it was my first, I got to finally activate my trial, because I'd been waiting on Audible forever. Like, I just need something that really grabs me, and Sandman grabbed me. So I clicked, and that was my first actual, purchase thingy. And I listened for, I'm going to say about 4 or 5 hours before I had to take a little pause and get back to reality for a minute. But it is just so gosh darn wonderful. It's right bordering on the line of absolute perfection for me as an audio nerd.
Whoa.
And spending my entire career in audio, they've done just about everything. And I could be so super critical but nobody should ever think it as a fault. I would give more stereo separation a little bit further on the left, a little bit further on the right, because there's a lot of people that walk into a room and then come dead center to sit in front of your face, and then we'll walk out of room. And there's a lot of movement that happens in this, and it's so magical and so mysterious. And they've got all the sound effects are true to life in a way that you feel that you're in the environment that they're telling you that you're in. Next, you've got a voice cast of incredible, Hollywood A-level talent all the way across the board. From the biggest to the smallest, everybody is A-level. So you've got performances that are true and authentic and never feel false. So you are really brought into this world. And then on top of that, they had someone actually score music. Now, let me break this down for you real quick so you know a little behind the scenes. Normally, if you're producing something, you go online to a library of music that you're going to pay for. And yes, there's a bunch of different variety, but it's usually cut to be exactly 60 seconds or exactly 30 seconds for commercial use. And these moments take place in a handful of seconds. So they actually got a Hollywood level composer to score everything. And every single note was placed there on purpose to tell the story. It was not gotten from a library because it sounded neat and cool. It was brought to life by someone who wrote it specifically to exist to support the Sandman story. So, they went all out on every single detail. And then you got Neil Gaiman as the narrator. Cherry on top. I'm satisfied. Give me a bib and a spoon. I'm going at it like a pig. As far as the storyline goes, the one thing that I've truly enjoyed is the fact that I know every issue being told verbatim. And so when I sit back with my headphones on and close my eyes to get lost in this world, I can see panel by panel every single issue that's being put forth. And as a Sandman fan, if you truly love your Sandman comic books, that is really the reason to dive into this one, is because you can close your eyes and see every single panel that you remember reading about 30 some years ago now. And if you're a new person to the Sandman universe, it's also a great way to get wrapped up in the magic and the mystery, because you can close your eyes and sometimes you are your very best director, your own storyteller. That's why the book is always better than the movie. You read the words, but you paint that picture in your mind. You're the director. And so in these instances, you get to paint some wonderful mental images for yourself. And then you're going to have to go and see how close was I to the original comic, and you'll go buy the comic and see your side-by-side comparison.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it's wonderful. Check it out. Go ahead.
All right. Well, speaking of things coming to a close, so to speak, you've got the other half of the episodes to listen to, but we're kind of in the final stretch now with the final season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I just got caught up myself this past week. I wondered what you were thinking of this run of shows.
I think the simplest way to review it is to say that they're having fun with their last season, and I'm also having fun with them having fun with their final season. I like the time jumping. aspect. I've always been a fan of time travel stories. They're having fun with it. They really commit to it. I like the opening credits, how the logo changes from show to show to represent the decade they're in. I love that they committed to actually doing a full episode, film noir style, with the old detective story, and it fit. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to admit, me personally, I love that they folded in Agent Sousa, I believe his name, from Agent Carter, and that was really for me. Who I keep a candle burning for Agent Carter. I keep hoping that, especially in our Disney Plus age, that somebody somewhere will decide maybe we should circle back on that idea. But no, same thing. I've really been enjoying the season. The whole time jump conceit has been fun, and I'm going to be intrigued to see how they wrap this up, how they bring this to a close. Okay, so we got to talk about things we enjoy, things that are fun. And now we have to turn to the news that broke today about Tenet. It was supposed to originally be released on July 17th, then got moved to July 30th, and then to August 12th, which, by the way, was the 10th anniversary of when Christopher Nolan's Inception first arrived in theaters. But did you see today that Warner Brothers actually took Tenet completely off its release schedule for 2020?
Well, I'm not surprised. If you don't have both the New York and the Los Angeles market kicking in your theater neighborhood, what's the point?
Yeah.
You had said that there were approximately 1,000 theaters open in the U.S. Is that the number-ish?
Obviously, the drive-ins in America are up and running. But yeah, they mentioned that of the 5,000 theaters that are in North America, roughly 1,000 are open. And that kind of threw me for a loop, because the theaters here in New England have been closed, with the exception of the drive-in down in Milford that opened 4 or 5 weeks ago. But all of the other theaters, all of the multiplexes, the duplexes, that sort of thing, they're shut down tight. They haven't shown a film. In fact, I think I saw Onward in March on the very last day theaters were open to the public.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in middle rural America where there's a lower population and you're, for the most part, rather healthy, no one's sick, then sure, like theaters can open up. But I grew up in a town where the population was about like 2,000 people, legit small town America. Okay. We had one theater. So I'm imagining, my old hometown in this instance where they've got one screen available. They have a smaller population. For the most part, it's healthy. And they can open up a theater safely. But Christopher Nolan is not intending to open up for Oscoda, Michigan.
Yeah.
Love you guys back home. Hope you're well. But you're not a big enough population to satisfy the release of Tenet. Sorry. And they know that. We all know that. You need New York and you need LA. Now, if the rest of the country is ravaged with COVID and the theaters aren't open, that ends up leading to a whole host of other questions of, if you can't open a theater, what are you going to do with all of this material that you have on the shelf? Is it going to age well over time like a fine wine? Probably not. Some will be okay. But some stories were built, or written in an age and a time that, a time affects the things that are written. Twilight Zone was a good example of examining your era that you're living in. So I don't know if all these things are going to age well. They need an outlet. They need, Netflix is going to need content. I'm sure they're going to try and buy something from someone.
It's always interesting that you find out things that you're not supposed to find out at moments like this. And, for example, Warner's admitted that every time they push back a release date of a film like Tenet, it costs the studio anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000, and that's changing ads, it's printing new posters, all that. And now, mind you, they're talking about potentially opening it overseas because coronavirus appears to be on the retreat in certain markets in Europe and Asia. But in our age of people can walk into a theater with a phone, I mean, one of the reasons that the studios put day and date releases worldwide in place was to shut down the pirates who would walk into a theater in New York, film a film on opening day, and it would be available for sale, on the street in Beijing the following Monday. How ironic would it be that if Tenet or other films get to open first and It's, all of us trapped at home here in the States who are the ones who pirate. I get to see the new Christopher Nolan before it opens here in the States.
Well, I just believe that we've got a lot of streaming content services that are not able to create content right now. So they're going to be seeking stuff that is already made, done, wrapped up with a little bow. And they're going to sling a pile of cash at him and say, can I have some for my streaming service, please, sir? Like Oliver with his little bowl. Please, sir, may I have some more?
Thank you. That's a wonderful transition for the next thing, because Disney Plus has just released its schedule for August. And I have to admit, I really am kind of intrigued by the Marvel stuff that's showing up there. I mean, for example, on August 7th, Fox's original X-Men from June of 2000. Now, mind you, it's not the first X-Men to show up on Disney Plus. X-Men Days of Future Past actually debuted, I think, just after we recorded our last show on July 10th. And then just after that, X-Men Apocalypse debuted on July 17th. So you and I have talked about whether or not Disney's going to reboot the X-Men as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And don't you find it kind of intriguing that they're literally putting these films out there?
No, not at all.
No?
No. Remember, please, may I have some more? We just need content. Don't care what it is. Put it in my bowl. Reheated leftovers from 10 years ago. Fine. Put it in the bowl. I'm hungry.
Okay.
Content, please. Content. So, no, not intriguing. And we're not getting anything new. They just need to put something out there like to satisfy a reason for me to keep giving them money every month. The only reason I'm not having this conversation with Disney right now is I was stupid. We got the full year up front. And because we thought there would be this never-ending feast, and we got through Mandalorian and smacked our lips and went, "What's next?" And they went, "Hold on, the chef is making something very good. It'll be coming in November of 2020." And I was like, "What? What? No. I need content now."
Well, it's, again, interesting that you bring that up, because obviously you saw the same thing that I saw, that originally Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to debut in August. We now know that's not going to happen. I have heard that they're shooting for September. In fact, evidently there's tremendous pressure to get it done for September, because as you just mentioned, Mandalorian Season 2 is looming large, and it's the whole notion of we want that for November sweeps. We want that during that period when advertisers and the like are particularly paying very close attention to, how many people tune in or subscribe or that sort of thing. But another weird little side note here, Paul Bettany, the gentleman who plays Vision, back when there was actually still going to be a Tampa Comic-Con, which was going to be held the first week of June, he actually had to pull out of that because they had found a way for WandaVision to go back before the cameras. He pulls out, and less than a week later, Tampa decides it's not safe to have a Comic-Con, so it gets shut down entirely for 2020. But WandaVision evidently will, in fact, make its December debut on Disney Plus. We have our slippy, slidey delivery date for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which would right now it's September. I can't tell you when in September, but September. On the other hand, Wanda in December, then Loki. Right now, the closest they'll come to locking in a release time is spring of 2021, and spring runs all the way up to June 20th, right? So, and on the other hand, Hawkeye is just 2021 at some point. So they're not willing to get terribly specific about that. Looking out to September, Fox's The Wolverine from July of 2013 is going to debut on Disney's streaming service. And I guess what makes me sad is that we get this chunk of the Wolverine trilogy, but we're never going to get Logan.
Yeah, but I think at this point, just because the movies have been around for a while, I've had plenty of opportunities to watch them over and over. So much of this content doesn't even really register to me as content. If I'm on Netflix and I've seen Alien a bazillion times in my life because I truly love that movie as a horror movie. If I see Alien show up on Netflix, I do not consider that to be new content in my mind, because it's been with me on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K download, etc., as part of my collection in my library. That my mind does not trigger that as a new thing. I already have many copies of that thing. That is just another copy of a thing I already have many copies of. Same with Star Wars, and same with all of the MCU. I've got all of it in many, many formats. So when Disney Plus goes, hey, Aaron, guess what we've got for you? The original X-Men with Patrick Stewart. And I go, so? I've got 7 copies of that. Now I've got 8. Thanks.
Okay.
I want Scarlet Vision. I want Loki. I want the new stuff that hasn't yet entered my eyeballs and my brain and my ears. That's what I'm looking for right now for new content from Disney Plus.
Well, now, interesting that you bring that up, because, again, Hawkeye has yet to shoot, but they are lining up key creatives. And I have to admit, I'm kind of intrigued by this. They've hired to direct a couple of episodes. They've got Amber Finlayson and Katie Elwood, who are probably best known for their work on Amazon's coming-of-age comedy Troop Zero. They've also hired Rice Thomas, who's a veteran Saturday Night Live director, and he's supposed to helm a couple of episodes of Hawkeye as well. So kind of intrigued that they went with guys who really have more comedy experience when it comes to Hawkeye. Because
let's point back to Thor Ragnarok. They got Taika Waititi. When that was announced, that was a bold statement of we're going somewhere different. And it worked really, really well because Taika has a very creative comedy mind. He's known for his comedy work. So they were expecting a bold, creative, comedic choice, some levity. And Thor Ragnarok is the funniest of all of the Thor movies, hands down. But yeah, I think that was where Chris Hemsworth finally felt rejuvenated playing Thor as almost like a new character. He felt refreshed in that role all of a sudden. And Hawkeye has been dour. He's been the bad guy in the first Avengers movie throughout most of the movie. So he kind of felt, overshadowed by his own, betraying of the team for a while. He really hasn't had a chance to shine and develop and be his own thing. He's always been attached to someone else's movie. So now that they're going to give him a moment to do something, it better be more than just a bad Batman who is, always scowling and angry and I'm going to go protect the city. You know what? Okay, fine. So yeah, I'm kind of okay with the fact that they went with some comedic choices and that they're going for a lighter tone, and that's all fine and good. We need some levity in our MCU every once in a while.
Now it's so intriguing you say that, because I just came across this amazing story. I mean, face it, from the moment all of us saw Endgame and that wonderful exchange between Thanos and Tony Stark at the very end of the battle, that's I am inevitable and I am Iron Man. That was an iconic moment from the get-go. But the interesting thing is Joe Russo was talking in a recent interview, and that Tony used to not say anything in that moment. And we were in the editing room, and it was like, well, he has to say something. This is a character who lives and dies by quips. And so they try like a million different lines, and they never get anything to work. And do you ever hear what Robert Downey Jr. came up with for that moment? Or
no, I thought it was the editor was the one that threw them the idea for the final line. But what did Robert come up with for Tony?
It was a little on the nose, but basically it was like, oh, snap.
Oh goodness! I almost wish they would have went with that, because that is funny.
That is funny, but again, face it, and you're right. It was actually Jeff Ford, the editor, who, I mean, they're sitting there just sort of staring at the Avid machine. What do we do? How do we fix this? He's got to say something, and it's like, well, why don't we bring it full circle? Why don't we? The end of the first film, I am Iron Man. It's like, and the Russos were like, get the camera. We need to shoot that tomorrow. And they knew that it was a great callback to, an earlier line. And it was just funny enough, but not funny. It fit the emotion of the moment. And they were talking about the cut scene in Infinity Wars, it was when we were supposed to meet the Smart Hulk. Have you seen this footage with Anthony Mackie and Scarlett Johansson and Mark Ruffalo? Or
Yeah.
It does work out of context, but evidently edited into the film, there had been so much sacrifice and there was so much tension that the stakes were so high. It just seemed like a weird moment to kind of give this good thing to Bruce Banner, that he'd finally learned to make peace with the Incredible Hulk and they'd fused together to form this one entity. And it was just sort of like, this is a great idea, just the wrong time and the wrong way to do this. And so they cut it out and left it on the cutting room floor.
By the way, the Russo brothers will not give up on their Secret Wars chit-chat.
Yes.
Every time they go out, it's like they have to, every couple of months, they have to go, oh, by the way, did we ever tell you our dream was to direct Secret Wars? By the way, is Disney in the room? Hey, Disney, how you doing? Did we ever tell you our dream was to direct Secret Wars? Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a fabulous story.
Okay.
Now, if they do that, here's a big change that would have to happen.
Yeah.
Spider-Man nerd moment alert. Doo-doo. Spidey gets his black costume during the Secret Wars. Reason he gets his black costume is because his mask gets torn, and people would then be able to see his secret identity as merely a child, Peter Parker. And so he ends up getting this black costume during the process of being on a different planet, and it later turns out it's an alien called Venom, and we end up dealing with that later. So Venom already exists, so we can't do that. Second, we've already had Mr. Jameson from the Daily Bugle say, by the way, Spider-Man's Peter Parker. Rah, 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 rah. So he doesn't have a secret identity anymore.
That's by the way, that's one of the finer J.K. Simmons impressions I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can also play a peanut M&M, by the way. But
All right. There we go. All right. I'll tell you what, in a moment, folks, we'll talk a bit more about what the Russo brothers are up to while they're waiting to hopefully convince Disney and Marvel to make Secret Wars.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
Have you been keeping tabs on what Joe and Anthony have been up to? They spent a full year shooting Endgame Infinity War and Endgame as one giant film, right? Or
yeah, I mean, why not? You've got to assemble so much cast and crew that they're Hollywood talent type people, them A-listers. They've got other projects to work on, so it's not like you really have a whole lot of time where you can get every important person in the world in the same room at the same time. So they got to get what they can get while they can get it, do their scheduling, and get out and go into post-production. So it makes sense to shoot it all at once while they're all in the same room at one time, get those scenes against a blue screen so we can make sure we're going to put them in Wakanda now? All right, cool. Just throw up the Wakanda on the blue screen and we're good.
Well, I guess for me, what's kind of intriguing is if you look at like the three big projects that Joe and Anthony have done since they delivered Infinity Wars and Endgame. The first thing they directed and produced was Cherry, which actually stars Tom Holland, Spidey. Evidently, this is completed, and again, this is another one of these films that's waiting for theaters to open again so it can be released. But it's about an army medic with PTSD who becomes addicted to opioids and then starts robbing banks to pay for the addiction. So That's really kind of an interesting role for Peter Parker to be playing.
I just hope there's like a withdrawal happening during a robbery, because that's got to be the height of potential drama.
No.
Is to have the shaky gun. Oh, I'm sweating. Oh, I got the shakes, Hoss.
Okay. Now, meanwhile, but that's for theatrical release. Mind you, they also, Joe and Anthony also wrote and produced for Netflix Extraction, which came out this past April, starred Chris Hemsworth. That turned out to be a huge hit for Netflix. They earlier this month revealed in the first 4 weeks that was available on that streaming service, it was watched by 99 million households, which made it the most ever viewed for one of their original films. And then, on the heels of that success, just this week, Netflix announced they were going to put in production their most financially ambitious film so far. And again, Joe and Anthony are going to direct Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, Captain America, in a film called The Gray Man, which is supposed to create a brand new franchise for Netflix that's supposed to be on a James Bond type level. It's the highest budget they've ever put forward for a film, $200 million. What I kind of like about this is if you look at this, the Russo brothers, with these outside projects, they pivoted back to working with the guys that they worked on with the Marvel films, like, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Holland. And
I think that a lot of people, if you were to compare this to anything, I would think of someone almost like a Quentin Tarantino who picks the same few actors to work with over and over, or even Scorsese and Robert De Niro. Like certain directors, once they work with someone and they enjoy working with them and they get what they want out of them creatively for the project, and they end up learning how to, communicate with one another, because that's another thing is when you're a director, you have to be critical of someone and tell them, you didn't do it right. You got to do that again. And you got to do it this way, because that's the way that it's, conveys the whatever we're trying to convey. And so there's often a lot of tension when someone is telling you how to do your thing. And so when you're able to have a director and an actor who are able to collaborate together and get positive end results, and they both still like each other at the end of it, oh, well, that's the cream. That's the cream on top of everything. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that, and those people are like A-list celebrity status right now. So of course they're going to want them, because they're just cash cows. Grab them by the teeth, give them a little pull, a nickel pop out.
And there's another visual I'm gonna have trouble forgetting. Okay.
If I ever see Chris Hemsworth, I'm just gonna grab him on his chest and give a couple of pulls and see if any money come out.
Well, okay.
He's gonna punch me in the face, but it'll be fun.
Okay. Well, but at the same time, the weird sort of thing. If you watch the videos, if you watch the interviews, is these guys do seem to actually like one another. And that kind of became obvious this week with the Bridger Walker story. Have you been following this, the little boy from Wyoming?
Yeah, I gotta say that this is why the MCU is worthy of fandom to me, because together they're upholding the idea that Stan put forth so long ago that anybody can be a hero. Bravery is to be scared and still to do take the needed action, whatever that is. And that 6-year-old Bridger Walker, he earned his badge of being a hero.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't heard the story, basically, again, Bridger and his 4-year-old sister were at a neighbor's house playing, and a German Shepherd mix that, in fact, Bridger had talked about these dogs with his parents earlier, that there was the nice one and the mean one, and the mean dog rushed into the yard, and Bridger deliberately stepped between the dog and his 4-year-old sister, and dog bit him on the face and the scalp, and it took 90 stitches to close the wounds. And I've been trying to work the actual timeline here, because evidently Bridger's mom, Nikki, put out the word through social media, and I don't entirely understand how the word got back to Chris Evans. But Chris heard about this kid and immediately got on social media, put together a video message to him where he said, in essence, "Hey, Bridger, Captain America here. How you doing, buddy? So I read your story. I saw what you did, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of this over the last couple of days, but let me be the next one to tell you, pal, you're a hero. Your sister is so lucky to have you as a big brother. Your parents must be so proud of you." And Chris closed out his video message. "I'm going to get a hold of your mom. I'm going to send you a Captain America shield because you really are a hero." And where the story then gets genuinely sweet is that the other folks that Chris Evans has worked on the MCU films get word about Bridger, and they start reaching out. And so next is Robert Downey Jr., and his message is the effect of, "Bridger, you're a rock star. By the way, my name's Robert Downey Jr. I play Tony. That makes me a friend of Cap. And I heard he's sending a shield your way. I'm going to do one better. Your next birthday, I'll get something special for you. Late. By the way, and that's a promise, and a promise beats a shield." And then from there, Mark Ruffalo reaches out, and Chris Hemsworth, and Brie Larson, and all of these folks.
I have a feeling in an upcoming MCU film, there's going to be a small kid showing up to save the day somehow named Bridger.
It is...
Don't worry, Cap, I've got this one. And they're like, whoa.
It is so funny you say that, because the very last person to reach out was Tom Holland. And Tom is working right now on a pirate film called Uncharted, but he immediately, as soon as that's done, he's immediately beginning work on Spider-Man homework. What did you?
Yeah, work from home. Or
there
there
we go.
was,
okay,
yeah, or homeschooled if he's going to class.
But Holland gets a hold of Walker and says, "Hey, if you want to come to the set and hang out and see the Spider-Man suit up close, you're always welcome." And he invited the kid to the set. So, yeah, I think you're not wrong. I think we're going to see Bridger on camera sooner rather than later.
You know, that's really rude. Tom Holland should know that he's only 6. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a couple of grand on airfare and hotel. What the hell, man?
I think they'll sort that out.
Okay.
But I got to tell you, particularly now with just the news being this unending parade of terrible, I really needed the Bridger Walker story right about now. I really needed people being nice to a 6-year-old just because he's a 6-year-old. Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, they aren't on the Marvel payroll anymore, all right? That's in the rearview mirror.
No, but I almost think that they believe in this thing like Christopher Reeves was Superman for a while.
Yeah.
And he was associated with Superman, and he knew, I'm not Superman. I'm a different thing. I have different emotions and feelings, and he could have been bitter about, always being associated with Superman, but instead, he took the more noble approach by kind of trying to, in the public way, be that uplifting thing that Superman was. He was usually an uplifting kind of person and spoke positively about everything in general. Even when he had his accident with the horse and was paralyzed from the neck down, he was even more inspirational in those moments that reminded us even more of the Man of Steel character. Not even the guy in the suit. I'm just talking about the character, the spirit of the person. And there are a lot of actors that pick up a gig. They do their job, they set it down, they walk away from it, and they never look back. And then there's others like Captain America that you've been playing for like almost 15 years now or whatever. Part of it, you are Captain America. You have to accept that now, Chris. We look at you and the first thing we see is a star on your chest and an A on your forehead. That's the way it is now.
Okay.
And I think he understands that. And he accepts it. And he tries to live up to, when I think all of them kind of feel like Robert Downey Jr. believes he is Tony Stark. I mean, he is.
Well,
he is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
We look at him and we go, that's what Tony Stark is. And that's just, he's part of the zeitgeist. So because they have that mantle, because they have been given great power, Jim, they will use it with great responsibility. And I now owe somebody a nickel for that.
Okay.
By the way, let's throw this little bone out before we close the show on that uplifting note. Let's drag it back in the gutter real quick. Why is Disney putting out a New Mutants trailer? Like what are they trying to give us expectations only to deflate them again? The balloon can only go if it's full of air. So they have to pump us up so they can get the noise at the end.
You were doing so well there. I mean, you were sticking the landing with the great, power cards. Okay, well,
and then the balloon.
Then the balloon
came into the show.
Okay, well,
what are they doing? What are they doing? Is there a reason? I know that the digital Comic-Con thing is coming up, but the only reason for them to put out a trailer is to say, we're putting it on Disney Plus, because we know darn well if Tenet is being moved off of the planetary schedule for now, New Mutants doesn't have a hope in hell of seeing a screen. I feel like David Letterman should show up with a top 10 list and, Paul, can we get some New Mutants music, please? New Mutants, New Mutants music for Dave, la la la. Here's the top 10 list. Number 10, why will they not see a theater? Because theaters don't exist anymore. That's number 10.
And remember, the rule always with Letterman's top 10, the best gag was in the number 2 slot.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. So I think the only reason for them to release a trailer for New Mutants for this digital comic event is to say it's coming to Disney Plus, because again, they don't have content, they need content, and it's the only thing that can make them money right now. So,
face it, the same thing, the Logan, arguably the very best Wolverine film that's ever been made, will not show up on Disney Plus because it's an R. And Disney even has problems with PG films. In fact, the story about Splash, where they digitally extended the hair, or Daryl Hannah's hair, so it covers her butt.
Sacrilegious.
Yeah,
sacrilegious.
Absolutely.
Somebody should have been fired over that. Now, they've also got another service that they could shuffle it over to. They could put that stuff over on Hulu.
That's an interesting point.
And Hulu also needs content. It's not like one... They're both starving.
Okay.
So New Mutants has got to land somewhere. And if it's not going to be Disney Plus because it is horror, and it will, if they're having issues with PG and Daryl Hannah's butt is scary and will scar the children. Oh my God! Just see that booty. Oh, Becky, did you see her butt bumping it up? Baby got back. Hair on her back. So anyway, yeah, I think the only place it could go then, if it can't go on Disney Plus, would then be Hulu, right?
No,
so
that makes sense. But
there's no way it's coming to theaters.
Well,
no way.
You bring up an excellent point. We will know more at the end of this week, because we are 2 days away from the launch of Comic-Con at home. The first Comic-Con where we can all, in theory, go to every panel we want to go to, because everything's being broadcast online. So I would imagine we'll have a lot of Marvel-related news to share the next time we get together to do one of these shows.
And I'm sure it's all going to be release dates that have been pushed back another 6 months, right? That's the news. That's what Disney's going to trot out there.
Again, you ended it on a wonderful, hopeful note, and then we kept talking. Okay. Yep. All right. That's going to do it for this week's, folks. By the way, if you've enjoyed what Aaron and I have been chatting away here tonight, we have some other shows here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. We have the original. We have Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Z. We have Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. Likewise, we have Universal Joint with Dustin Fuse about the Universal theme parks. And we just got a brand new I Want That up. Anyway, folks, if you could do Aaron and I a favor and head over to iTunes and rate and recommend Marvel Us Disney, that helps us get extra ears and eyes. If you really, really, really like what you've heard here, if you get over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram. And by the way, have you noticed the number of people who are thanks to Len, enjoying your travels around the countries, your appearances at various cultural events?
It's hard to pack for all
I
of
was
that.
about to
It's
say,
like, well, I find out when I'm editing that I'm going to a sausage fest, and I'm like, okay, so what kind of sausage do I need to pick up for this event? Do I get the buns? What are we doing here? And so I show up, and there's a whole bunch of people, and they're like, okay, did you have the Vienna sausages? And I'm like, the Vienna sausage, I had kielbasa. I wish you guys would have sent a tweet.
Please, for those of you who are managing these various events where Aaron is putting his appearance, just a little upfront help there. Help the guy out. But anyway, again, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I guess that's going to do it for now. So, Aaron, you go back to listening to Sandman on Audible, and I'll get back to watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we'll do an update on our next show, okay?
Sounds good.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.